Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about my most recent Battle Brothers campaign that as I have concluded. I haven't beaten Monolith or I don't even think Goblin City in it, but I've done what I need to do. I'm sure I can beat the legendary locations with proper planning, and I think I've concluded this campaign. And this campaign is an offline campaign that I did, where I tried to use a lot of initiative builds. I did that kind of in preparation for Special Snowflake, so I would know what I'm doing. And I said I would use no whips. It is a random seed that I just did. I actually made it at first to have background footage for the Adrenaline Guide video, like the official one. And then I just kept playing it because I did really well. I killed some bunch of camps on day one, and I'm like, I really like these dudes. And we go forward. So this is not in no way a like seeded run where I had good bros at the start or anything like that. So I want to talk about how I've evolved as a player and the things that I've learned as a result of this campaign, and I think that'll be really useful to you. We're going to start with builds, and then we're going to go into other little miscellaneous tips, perks, and everything else, and my thoughts on those and how they've changed. The first build I want to talk about is the initiative tank. Now in this campaign, I got 3 tanks. 2 of them were initiative tanks, and one of them was a nimble tank. That is kind of by forced character roles. I did not really find any tanks that could be Battleforged. I would have loved to have Battleforged tanks. I think Battleforged tanks are better than nimble tanks overall, but we'll get into that. So first, let's just take a look. This guy's got 50 at 13. Throw a heater on him. He's got 75. This guy doesn't have shield spec because I built him like an idiot, and we'll get into that too. But he's got 53 at 19. And let's just take that shield there. Let's get rid of that extra shield. And this guy's got... This is a max roll, so we'll just give him... we have another heater. This guy's got 49 with the 154 initiative. And he's at 74. So what I want to do is I want to go into Monolith. This is just the first fight I had. And we're going to look at how good dodge is. So this dude right here, he has 95 melee defense because of his dodge. So if you even take... he's getting 21 from dodge. That's huge. That's 21 melee defense from dodge. Take this shield off. He's still got 70. That's where this tank is. This non-dodge tank. Without a shield. He's almost as good as this dude without a shield as this guy is with a shield. So that's saying something. So we're just going to look at the second dude here. He's at 97. And if we take this off, he's at 77. So this guy is in fact better than this dude without a shield. And these guys are still wearing heavy armor too, although I would recommend you do that anyway. So let's just exit Monolith. We don't care about that. Now, my point of showing that is that the initiative tank has a lot of melee defense. And that comes in at the early game. Because late game, they're better than the non-dodge tanks with their total melee defense. But the difference is kind of small. 75 versus 95 actually isn't as much when everything has like 70 melee attack. You'll be rolling on maybe between 5s and 13s, which is a huge difference. I'm not denying that's a huge difference. But the bigger difference is in the early game when you are between like 15 melee defense and then 35 melee defense. Because you're rolling between, you know, whatever that would be, like 60s and 30s. And in the early game when everyone's more squishy, taking those fewer hits is actually really huge. So the initiative tank is an early game tank as well, whereas a Battleforged tank or a non-initiative nimble tank takes more time to build up and might need better gear and can't just take a shield, dodge, and run into the fight and, you know, be marginally or actually effective. So let's take a look at how I built these dudes here. Alright, so taking a look at the initiative tank build right here, we see we have one little flex perk right now. This is a very perk-hungry build, the initiative tank. Because normally, if you look at a nimble tank, you don't need dodge. If you take a non-initiative tank, you would take this. You know, you have 3 perks right now. You could take rotate, gifted, and Gifted's already a flex perk, and then you could even take one more perk. So the regular initiative tank, sorry, the regular nimble tank is already kind of free on perks. If you go Battle Forged, you probably want to go Brawny. Then you have one extra perk, so you can go Gifted. So you wouldn't want nimble. Like this is a standard tank build in my mind. And those each can take Gifted. So if we go with you can even make a nimble forge tank. But with the initiative tank, with dodge and relentless, and nimble, that's a lot of perks right here. So we have one perk left. So let's think about it. Do we want fortified mind? Arguable. A lot of the really good initiative tank builds, backgrounds, are like peddlers, thieves, I don't know, like nomads, things that don't have a lot of high resolve. So you're now leveling initiative. So you're leveling melee defense, HP, stamina, resolve, and initiative. So you might just want to take fortified mind, and therefore not have to level as much resolve. So okay, then you don't have rotate. Okay, so then you want rotate, but then you have low resolve. So do you just Lionheart potion every single time? I don't know. Then do you start dropping rotate? But then you also don't have gifted. So gifted gives you a HP, initiative, melee defense, stam, like anything you want. You also can't go nimble forged, which is really good as well. You can't go lone wolf. You can't do a lot of things because there's a lot of perk hungry things here. I wouldn't drop shield spec. I think dropping shield spec is the thing I did on one guy, and that's really annoying. I don't have the blacksmith, but even still, I don't like not having shield spec. So I think dropping rotate it really sucks to drop rotate on a tank, because when you need rotate, it's really good. When you want to use it offensively to get like a two-hander or a duelist into a good position, it sucks that you can't do that. And when you need to rotate a guy out of danger, you can't do that either. So both of those are really annoying. But I think, at least in my mind, fortified mind was just more necessary, because I can't afford to level all these perks. And I think I can get away with not having the extra little bit of melee defense from gifted, because I have the dodge melee defense. So the melee defense is kind of fine. The other thing is like the HP is a little bit lower, and you can't really level that with gifted either. But I think this is the build. You would also even maybe want resilient. But the thing is with the initiative tank is resilient stops your dodge from going away forever. But as long as this build has melee defense to back it up, like if it's good melee defense plus good dodge, then it's fine. If you had a really shit tank that happened to have good initiative, then you'd maybe want resilient. Like, I have a tank in Special Snowflakes who has that. He's going to have like 28 or 31 melee defense at level 11, which is really bad for a tank. But he's got super high initiative. This guy might want resilient, because most of his melee defense is actually coming from the initiative portion, and it's kind of like fake in a way, because it can go away. If you put him in a net, his melee defense goes down. Whereas the tanks that we have in this campaign that we're talking about today, they have the base melee defense to back up being thrown in a net or being staggered, and they're not just going to become easy targets. So get to look at the next build, which is the Fearsome Gunner. And Fearsome Gunners, I found are really good. My last campaign was slings, and the handgun is a much needed upgrade over the sling, as anyone with guns versus sticks would know. Now, you can see here that I think the best Fearsome Gun build is actually a thrower hybrid, and I'll explain that. So it takes 3 AP to fire your handgun, and you can't always fire it because you might hit a bunch of friendlies, so sometimes you'll have to move and do it. So you move 2 on 2 AP, then fire for 3, and then you have 4 AP left and you can't reload the handgun. Okay, you have 4 AP left, so you quick hands and you throw a javelin. This would be easier with Pathfinder for sure. Maybe you could drop Berserk and take Pathfinder, and then you don't have Berserk. You could drop Duelist, maybe. You could maybe even drop Colossus if you wanted to. These builds shouldn't be getting hit enough to really need Colossus, but that means you have to get to Nimble without taking Colossus, and that's kind of risky. So you obviously want Nimble. You want Fearsome and Overwhelm. Overwhelm's a mechanic of debuffing like 5 enemies, and Fearsome because if you hit 5 enemies and proc Fearsome on one of them, that creates a cascading effect, which might make the other guy fail. There's a whole process that goes into Fearsome. I've always started to like Fearsome. You could maybe just drop Dodge and take Pathfinder. The reason you want Pathfinder is so you can always move to fire the handgun and switch to a throwing weapon to maximize your AP usage. That's why we've taken Berserk, is to maximize our AP usage again. If you get a kill with the handgun, you could reload and then fire it again, or you could reload and then switch to a throwing weapon. It's all about maximizing AP. I don't think this... I could maybe take Fortified Mind. I took Fortified Mind on some of the dudes in the campaign. I don't think that's worth it. You maximizing your Fearsome with the Resolve probably isn't worth it when you can get other perks. And I think when you're firing the handgun at so many enemies, you'll proc Fearsome enough anyway, or just with the throwing weapons, to where you'll proc it regardless, and that extra little bit of Resolve isn't going to really help you. Next, I'll take a look at the Polearm build, and just recently made a video on backliners, and, to a mixed bit of criticism. People were talking about how the initiative dodge does not give you as much melee defense as leveling melee defense, and that's totally right. But I want to stand by that if you're building this pure backline Polearm guy, you want to level your initiative. Because the pure Polearm backliner kind of sucks. Like, it's a pretty sucky build. You don't do enough damage to equal a frontliner. Like, one strike from a Polearm does not equal one strike from a two-hander, obviously. And you can't swing it twice, so it doesn't equal the damage output of a duelist. So it's a subpar damage dealer, unless you have like a super jacked damage famed item. But even still, it's kind of a weak build. It trades off for that with really good flexibility, because you have Pathfinder and a 2 reach, so you can hit anyone in 4 tiles. So having multiple builds like this can add subpar damage where it's needed anywhere on the field, which has its own merits. So I don't think this is a bad build, but it needs something more, which is why you want an Overwhelm and Fearsome. Fearsome for the morale checks, especially if you're sword lancing, and Overwhelm to make your enemies not hit you as much. And that's where you get the initiative in. Both of these things, making enemies have less morale and therefore less stats, because Wavering gives you less melee attack and melee defense, and then Overwhelm, which gives them less melee attack, means the enemy will be weaker by the time they get to hit your front line. So I think that it's pretty much mandatory that if you're trying to optimize the Polearm build, which is already kind of weak, to make it more serviceable, you want to level up your dodge. It would level your initiative, which gives you dodge and relentless. I've already talked about this build, so this is what we have right here. I don't think I really need to go into detail on it. Finally, I want to talk about the Shamshir Duelist, which is a build that I made for the first time this campaign. I got a max roll Shamshir, so my results will be better than anyone else's Shamshir Duelist, just based on the fact that I do more damage than you. I think it's 1 point off of a max roll on armor, ignore, and damage, and so it's just really good. But I can see that even without the max roll, this build is pretty gnarly. Let's take a look at its build right here. So we go with Student. I just pick Student, whatever. We went with Colossus. You want to go Crippling Strikes and Executioner because we're min-maxing the use of the Gash ability. The Gash ability on the Shamshir has a 50% chance, lower threshold to inflict an injury. I mean, you can see that right here. That's with Sword Mastery, and then I think it already has a 50 or it's a 33% or something on the Gash ability base. So when you min-max this with the Sword Mastery, Executioner, Crippling Strikes, you do a fuck-ton damage because you're getting a fuck-ton of injuries. I think from Puggo Reborn's Crippling Strikes guide, there was a slide in the very beginning where he said if you min-max all of this, you need to do 8.33% of an enemy's HP to injure them. And you will do that. You can even injure unholds. Maybe that's because I have the max roll Shamshir. But with Duelist and all these perks right here, you are injuring things even as big as unholds sometimes. But other things like even orc warriors, any sort of human enemy, you will injure them. You'll even probably injure them without the gash ability. And that is super helpful. So again, we want to take Berserk, Killing Frenzy, Nimble, Duelist. I want to go Fearsome again, because Fearsome is a very powerful perk. But now we're getting into a problem of we don't have Recover. I would like Recover on this build, because it's a Duelist, and I think Recover's kind of a C tier perk. But one of its great things is the Kill Recover combo with Berserk. But, you know, I want Pathfinder as well, because I want to reduce my stam all the way. I would like to take Dodge. You don't even have to level Initiative, but if you just take Dodge, it's free melee defense, and that's nice. I would just like to have that. I would like to have Underdog as well. I personally don't plan, like, a midline formation guy. I don't keep my front line in a static line, so I like to give everybody Underdog, because I don't want to have to plan around, oh, this guy doesn't have Underdog, and now I have to put him in a good position, or a bad position, and then, yeah. So that's just how I play. I would like to give him Underdog. Not all the people need to do that. But, and again, you're taking Crippling Strikes and Executioner, two kind of fluff perks. This is a normal damage deal. This is a normal Duelist. And then you're taking two more. So that's two perks you're not taking, whether it be Recover, Dodge, Underdog, whatever. Let's just take a look at these guys in character, in the game. We have this dude right here. He's gotten no kills, but he's survived a lot. I think this is kind of how you would build him. Again, he's got 66 Resolve, which is not quite where you want him with Fortified Mind. Same with this guy. He's got about 65. And this dude right here, he got 65 without it, but he's a regular Nimble tank. Let's take a look at the Polearm dude. He's got a fuck ton of kills. He does have a really good, basically max roll sword lance that I found. But he also doesn't have Fearsome, because I think I built him incorrectly. I gave him Recovery, which he should not have. But this build is effective nonetheless. And here's the Shamshir Duelist. I gave him Recover instead of Pathfinder, because I didn't really know what I'm doing. And I took Underdog instead of Fearsome, because again, I didn't really know what I'm doing. But if you take a look at him, 344 kills and 141 battles. That's really good. This guy does have a lot of stats. I just found him, you know, I didn't really groom him. He's just some dude. But this is a great build right here. And now that we've talked about the builds, I want to just talk about the rest of the campaign and some other little things that I've learned. So, if we've noticed, there's no whips. And the title of this is the No Whip campaign. So, yeah, you don't need to use whips. My first campaign, I had no DLC, so I didn't use whips. Then I started using whips, and I'm like, wow, whips are amazing. Then they nerfed whips, and I'm like, yeah, whips are still really good. And I still think whips are really good. But you definitely don't need them. Who would use whips? I didn't really make any cleaver duelists. I think cleaver whip duelists are good, because cleavers are already good. They're good against undead. They have high bleed potential, which hurts human enemies, hurts nimble enemies. And the whip is good against geists. It's a free perk, because you're already taking cleaver spec. And that's fine. I didn't do any of that. The banner is another build that I like to build a whip on, because the banner kind of sucks. And the banner really does suck without whips. A melee banner without whips is really shit at DPS. So, I've seen some weird sins. He makes throwing banners, where he just has the banner in a pocket, and he has a throwing, like, he'll just maybe a throwing weapon. Level range attack, has pretty shit melee attack, or maybe he's leveled him kind of as a hybrid. But the build is really effective from what I've seen, so that's probably better than what I'm doing right here. I gave this guy quick hands still, mostly just for nets. I gave him Fearsome. I think Fearsome on the banner is a excellent choice, because you're already leveling Resolve, so you might as well just take Fearsome at that point. You should take Fearsome on anyway, but you might as well. So yeah, you don't really need whips. I found that what I did to counteract not having whips is to have a lot more nimble. I can take a lot more hits. I also didn't really have the choice. A lot of these dudes like don't have Battleforge stam anyway. But taking nimble and taking flexible Pathfinder polearm builds means I can move out of the way of a lot of enemies, and therefore I don't really need to disarm as much. I have talked about this before. I'll say it one last time, is Fearsome is a really strong perk, and I haven't used it as much in this campaign, but I think I should. I think I saw it with the handguns. And I've talked to people about it. I've watched some streamers, read Reddit threads, and I'm not gonna claim at all that I'm like the guy here to, like, it's the master. But Fearsome is really good, so I really recommend using Fearsome. Now, one thing I want to note, just a little sideline conversation here, is how does this make me feel about my I've made the best Fearsome video, Fearsome build video? That video has taken on a new meaning for me. So when I built that Fearsome build at the time, which I concluded at the end of that video was a hammer riposte double mastery build, that my thought was to make Fearsome good, you have to min-max it. You have to get 100 resolve, you have to use like the wolf mantle and the crystal skull, and that'll make Fearsome really good, and at like 1v1ing enemies or whatever. And that's not true. I think I had a misconception about how to use Fearsome. I'd always heard Fearsome sucked. I tried to make it good, but Fearsome is good. So what I concluded there is that the riposte build was really nice, and that leads to what the actual conclusion is that Fearsome has a cascading effect where it's hard to, or nearly impossible to judge the effect of one Fearsome attack against one guy, because it makes everybody else weaker, because they're all making resolve checks. One guy makes a resolve check, he wavers. All his friends therefore have to make a resolve check against that guy wavering. So the cascading effect makes it really good, which is why the riposte build I found was nice, because each time a Reaver attacked me, I gave him Fearsome, and then every barbarian around him had to make their own resolve check. So I was close to the conclusion that is the truth, which is that Fearsome has a cascading, really good effect. So now I think that video, which I believe, I'm actually going to change the title, I think. I'm going to change it to, how good is Fearsome if you min-max it, or like the best min-max Fearsome build. Like throwing Fearsome all the way to the top, I did some really questionable things. I found a sword master, made him old, gave him 10 more resolve. Like there's so many weird things I did there. But I think that proves what Fearsome at its best can do. Fearsome does not have to be at its best, though. Fearsome, on a dude with 50 resolve, is still fine, because that's how it was before the buff, where they let you add your own resolve to it. And second, again, it's cascading. So if it procs at all, it helps with like 5 enemies, and you have like 5 people doing it. If you get Fearsome on more dudes, it makes the cascading effect stronger. And so Fearsome is a super strong perk that I will be using in the future more, and I totally recommend that you do as well. Next is Recover. I have actually had a lot of Recover on this team. This guy has not been in a lot of fights, so I don't really count him. I just got into level 11. Like I made some duelists here. They all have Recover. Made this guy when he has Recover because he's like a starting bro. But this guy shouldn't have Recover, but like these backliners, our Pathfinder, Recover is not a very good perk. I think what I'm learning is that I want to use more Stam neutral or Stam, like slightly positive builds. And I don't mean heavy armor, battle forged, no Stam, like have 20 pocket Stam builds. I mean, like take Pathfinder. It's like what this dude's gonna be. Pathfinder with Polearm spec and quick hands, and then a 2-hander, or Pathfinder like axe spec, a long axe, and a great axe. And that way you don't need Recover, and you can always output your damage. What this means is that duelists aren't as good as 2-handers, because you're sacrificing the ability to swing twice every turn for the ability to move one and attack. And you can do this with Nimble. Nimble Battleforge doesn't matter. You can still have Berserk for when you want to double hit. I think that's fine. I would never want to get rid of Berserk and Killing Frenzy to use these builds. I don't think. But when you can really probably have about 20 Stam, you recover 15, probably have a little bit left. You what am I trying to say? You don't want to swing twice, or you can't swing twice, which leads you towards a team that is full of two-handers and two-hander reach weapon combos, which makes quick hands really strong, makes polearm spec really strong, and it makes two-handers really strong because they can move one and attack, or the reach weapon can move one and attack, and that makes you really flexible, which means a lot of these duelist builds kind of fall by the wayside. The duelist polearm is still a valid build, but a pure duelist like this, I think, kind of falls away unless you have a really good famed weapon. So that is the conclusion that I kind of came to with Recover, and I don't really want to use Recover anymore. On tanks, I think Recover is necessary because I'm taunting a lot, I'm in-doming a lot, I'm shield bombing a lot, I'm getting swung at a lot. All of those things build on my stam, especially in-dom, and I just need to recover every now and then. But on these regular DPS builds, I think the consistency of having two-handed weapons and hitting once, doing a shit ton, probably equal to your duelist, and then having a reach weapon is just better. It's just more optimal. And finally, this is not really a build or perk point, but I found that I played really aggressively this campaign. You know, you can see in the background of a lot of footages and in the Day 81 Barbarians video that I was able to progress the quickest I could on this random map seed right here. This map's kind of shit. It's fine. It's a fine map. And I progressed super quickly, and I was able to get endgame gear really early. I didn't play as good as I could have, but I did really well. So take mercenary and noble fights. I pissed off this house right here. It got me super geared up super early. And I'm at day 199, which is the quickest I think I've ever been able to even attempt something like Monolith. Or really, I've been probably ready to take on endgame shit at day 100. I've never been able to do that before. I'm not, and people have beaten Monolith in 30 days. But myself, I've grown as a player by playing more aggressively and quickly, and that's because of my adrenaline early game that I've talked to death about. So, this was very rambly, but this was the point of this video. This video was an introspective talking about my experience playing this campaign. I think takeaways are that initiative builds are valid, and you make yourself a better player when you start caring about initiative. You can cruise through this game, never leveling initiative, and I did that for like 700 hours. And I still think I'm a decent player. But I became better when I took, that's a whole new system that you're learning. And when you can manage that, I think you become a much stronger player. Second thing is maximize your AP usage. So I think that means not using Recover. I think that means probably going into more like reach weapon, kind of two-hander builds. I think that's where my next campaign is going to be going. 3 is Fearsome is really strong. And 4 is that whips are not necessary. And that might be it. I think those are the 4 things that I'm learning from this campaign. So I hope everybody kind of learned something from that. I ask that you try out these things in your next campaign and tell me how they are. I would like to hear some feedback on this. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good day.